Hello, today I will be talking about the Illinois Works Pre-Apprenticeship Program performance-based payment model. This was intended to be presented at the annual conference. However, due to some technical difficulties, we were not able to present. So please follow along with this webinar to learn more about the payment model, monthly compliance reports, and how all of the reimbursement maximums get to the Office of Grants Management. So to begin, just a review of the performance-based model. So the performance-based model is based on four funding benchmarks: enrollment, completion, primary transition, and closeout reports. So this is the breakout. Your grant award, which is at all the way over here on the right, that's 100%, is broken out into specific allocations. So enrollment is worth 25% of the grant award. Completion is 30%. Primary transition is 35%. And your closeout report is 10%. So this session will focus primarily on enrollment, completion, and primary transition because those are your active performance measures throughout the program related to your participants. The closeout report I will review shortly at the end, but if you want more information about the closeout report, you can refer to the Q3 administrator meeting, and there is an entire section there where we walk through the closeout report for Illinois Works as well as the Office of Grants Management. So here is a benchmark example, just so you can get an idea of how this actually works. So up at the top, you can see the total grant award is 500,000. And then we have the benchmarks: enrollment, completion, primary transition, and closeout reports and their percentages. And then what that looks like as far as funding. So because this grant award is worth $500,000, 25% of that would be 125,000, 30%, 150, and so on and so forth. So from those numbers, those enrollment, completion, transition numbers, we then create a per participant allotment. So the per participant allotment is the dollar amount allotted for each participant's outcome. So when you have a participant enroll, that is the amount that gets reimbursed or paid out for that individual outcome metric. Now, this is determined by taking that funding portion from that benchmark. So for enrollment, again, it's 125,000, and that's divided by the outcome metric goals that were provided by the grantee. So in this case, 125,000 divided by 50 participants who will be enrolled results in a per participant allotment of $2,500. And then this is repeated for completion and primary transition. So all of that will end up going into the overall compliance rating and eventually your overall progress report, which determines how much can be reimbursed on a monthly basis. So monthly, as the overall compliance rating is a monthly assessment of the grantee's progress toward outcome metrics. So this is again determined by enrollment, completion, and primary transition numbers. And then it factors in the timeline from the work plan that was provided. So if you have just started your first cohort, we would only take into consideration enrollment. If you are finishing your second cohort, we would take into consideration all of cohort one's numbers, and then enrollment, completion, and primary transition for cohort two. So it's completely based on the timeline that was provided. So let's go ahead and explore what are the different compliance ratings. So there are 4 compliance ratings. The first one is excellent progress, which means that your overall progress towards your outcome metrics is above 100%. Good progress is 76% to 100%. Inadequate is 75 to 50. And then poor progress is anything less than 50%. So let's look at an example. So in this case, grantee A has just started their enrollment. So in their first review, only cohort 1 enrollment would be considered. So this means that overall compliance will be based on just that enrollment, and it will end up being 60%. So it's 60% towards that enrollment goal. And as a result, this grantee would receive an overall compliance rating of inadequate progress. So you can see here, their goal was 25, the actual was 15, getting that 60%. 60% then correlates to that inadequate progress rating. Now, let's follow this grantee further in their process. So let's say fast forward a couple of months, we now have completed instruction and grantee A has started their transition process. So you can see their enrollments came up 24 out of 25. They had 21 out of 22 complete, and they've just started their transition. So they have 8 out of the 18 that have made a primary transition so far. So in this case, all 3 of these metrics would be taken into consideration. So you add up the enrollment percentage to goal, 96, the completion percentage to goal, also 96, and then that primary transition percentage to goal, which is 44, totaling 236%. Now that is divided by the number of metrics taken into consideration. So in this case, it's just cohort 1 enrollment, completion, and primary transition. So we would take that 236%, divide it by 3 to get an average of 79%. And 79% then correlates to an overall compliance rating of good progress. So you can see here, even if you do not hit every single goal, even if you're still working through transitions, it's still possible to sit in that good progress rating. And there's ways to kind of create this simulation for your own team. So you can see, if you were to achieve so many transitions, what would you need to get into good progress, things like that. But this just gives you a simple kind of understanding on one cohort. Now, if you have multiple cohorts, all of these factors come into play. So if grantee A started another cohort, I would look at enrollment, completion, primary transition for cohort 1, as well as enrollment for cohort 2, and so on and so forth. All of those percentages to goal would be summed and then averaged based on the number of metrics that were taken into consideration. So where does this data go? So all of this is used to create the monthly progress report. So the compliance rating, the per participant allotment, they all come together in this monthly progress report. So this report just provides a snapshot of new data entered into IWRS since the last reporting date. So that is really, really important to remember. This monthly progress report is not aggregate data. It will only show what has been entered into IWRS since the last monthly progress report. So we are always running a month behind. So if you get a report in October, that is going to represent September data. When you get the report in November, that will represent October data. So it is just what has been entered new since the last report. So let's take a look at this report. So in this example, I have an organization, ABC123 Construction. They're doing well. They're saying at 97%. And you can see they have 2 cohorts. So each cohort has an enrollment goal of 25. Then next you see their enrollment since the last review. So cohort 1 has 0 new enrollments. So That makes a lot of sense because they have completions, which means they're done enrolling. They've finished instruction. I wouldn't expect any new enrollments there. But cohort 2 has 10 new enrollments. So now we're looking at they're actively enrolling for their second cohort. Now, remember, this does not mean that they only have 10. So it's possible that they have been enrolling, and on the last progress report, they enrolled 15, and now they've enrolled 10 new ones. And so they actually do have 25 enrollments, but 25 will not show up on this report. It is only how many have been entered since the last progress report came out. So then that fourth column there is the per participant allotment for enrollment. So in this case, this organization again has a $500,000 award. It was divided by 50, which is their total enrollment goal, to get that 2,500 per participant allotment. And then so on and so forth through completion and through primary transition. Now, when you get over to the right, that secondary transition actual since last review, this is for any participant who does not transition to a registered apprenticeship program and instead transitions into employment, transitions into another training program, whatever that may be. They have transitioned to an alternate outcome. In that case, the per participant allotment is 50% of a primary transition. And then the last column all the way to the right is going to show you that reimbursement maximum for that cohort on this monthly progress report. So how much has that reimbursement maximum increased based on those cohort numbers? So for cohort 1, this month, the reimbursement maximum is almost 58,000. For cohort 2, it's 25,000 even. So if you have more than 2 cohorts, that all of those will show up. Having a 0 here does not necessarily mean anything bad. 0 can simply denote that you have not reached that stage yet. So for example, cohort 2 has the 10 enrollments. So it's likely that this organization is still working through recruitment. So it wouldn't be expected that they would have any completions here. So it's important to note that this data is not going to be representative of what your overall compliance rating is. Your overall compliance rating is based on your aggregate data, which we will look at in just one moment. So just be sure to kind of separate those out. Your overall compliance rating is based on aggregate data. Your progress report is just a snapshot since the last report came out. So the second page of that progress report will tell you what is the total reimbursement maximum based on this month's data. The reimbursement maximum based on last review is how much was reimbursed last month. And then the total reimbursement maximum year to date is the amount that has been approved by the Office of Illinois Works to be reimbursed all for the entire year. So in this case, this is an October report, so it would be for the last 10 months. This is what has been approved to be reimbursed. So it might be that the current review and the last review total to, your year to date, but it's very likely, especially once you get into the later months of the calendar year, that number is not going to be the total of the current and last review, since there will be other reviews that have contributed to that number. Next is notes regarding overall progress rating. So this is where it is outlined what has gone into your overall progress rating. So looking at total cohort 1 enrollment completions, primary transitions, and cohort 2 enrollments. So again, these are then averaged, getting a sum of 97%, resulting in a rating of good progress. The next section is IWRS data trends. So this is where your grant manager will give you some information about your data in IWRS. So information that is in this box, unless it is noted, does not impact your overall rating progress. So if your completions or transitions have not been added into your overall progress rating because of a data issue, that will be noted on this report. However, if that is not noted, if there's nothing that says because of lack of data or something like that, this metric wasn't counted, what's in this data trend box is really just a flag for your team. So it's just your grant manager saying, this is something I saw, just make sure that this is completed. Usually this is a note that's just trying to look out for kind of long-term data integrity. So just something to be aware of, something that was noticed. And again, if it doesn't note that it impacted your overall progress rating, please just take these trends as your grant manager trying to give you a heads up. So next, we're going to talk about the aggregate data. So again, that monthly progress report is just that snapshot, but your payment worksheet that also comes every single month with your progress report, that is where you're going to get that aggregate data. So the payment worksheet provides the total number of enrollments, completions, and transitions, primary and secondary, that have been approved for reimbursement. So this is what that sheet will look like. So up in the left-hand corner, you will see the total grant award. You will see that breakout of those benchmarks. So 25%, 30%, 35%, what funding allocation went there, and then what that per participant allotment is. And then you have your closeout reports at 10%. Then to the right of that table, you're going to see your end of year balance. So what this means is that's the amount of funding that is still outstanding from your grant award that is yet to be kind of earned through your outcome metrics. So for most of the year, this will likely be a negative number because you're still earning that funding through your performance metrics. It is possible, of course, to exceed your outcome metrics, which would result in this number going positive. But for many of you, it would be expected that this would remain negative for most of the year as more and more funding is being earned. Then the next box below that is the outcome metric goals. So this is where we've outlined the goals that have been provided to us by your team. So in this case, 32 individuals enrolled, 27 individuals completed, 22 primary transitioned, and then 0 secondary transition. So that secondary transition goal is not a requirement, but some of you have opted to provide that to us. But for many, it's just a 0, as it will be very likely those who don't primary transition will go to a secondary transition. So the table below will tell you month by month what has been approved as an enrollment, completion, transition. Then it will multiply by the per participant allotment. And all the way over to the right, you will get your total funding available for that month. So if you are looking at your monthly progress report, what is on this report in that month? So let's look at October. So if I were to give you an October report, you would expect to see that there would be 14 enrollments, 0 completions, 2 primary transitions, 0 secondary transitions, and the reimbursement maximum for that review would be $46,111.84. So the individual months will correlate to that month's progress report. But this payment worksheet overall will give you your aggregate numbers. So this is where you will see 31 individuals enrolled, 17 completed, 10 primary transition, 1 secondary transition. So this is telling you overall how many individuals you've enrolled. So this is when we start getting into the questions about the monthly progress report, not totaling the total number of individuals enrolled. Again, that monthly progress report is just one snapshot. So you want to look at this report to get your total numbers to see what has been counted. Then all the way to the right, that total funding available column, if you look at the total there, that will match your reimbursement maximum year to date, how much has been available for reimbursement from our team. So that number and this report, it's important to remember that this only tracks what has been approved for your reimbursement maximum. It does not track what expenses have been paid out. So this number will continue to grow as your performance metrics come in. It will not reflect what has been paid out to you from the comptroller's office. So you want to ensure that you are keeping track of that on your end, because your reimbursement maximum will only say how much of your total grant award has been approved to be reimbursed so far. So that final benchmark is the closeout reports. So this is, as you saw in the payment worksheet, 10% of the overall grant funding. And that will require you to do an Illinois Works performance data verification checklist. So this is just ensuring that everything for your participants has been entered as far as enrollment, their attendance, post-assessment scores, any transition documents. So anything that is required to be entered into IWRS, the Office of Illinois Works will provide you with that data verification checklist. You will check all of those items off as they are completed in the system, and then return that to your Illinois Works grant manager, who will verify it. And then once everything is verified, we will send that off to the Office of Grants Management to let them know that your team has met all performance measures. And once you have met all performance measures, they will make a final payout to you. Once that payout is accepted and deposited in your bank account, the Office of Grants Management will ask you to send them a couple final reports, end of year aggregate fiscal report, end of year aggregate performance report, just to officially close out your grant year. For each of you, that date will be a little bit different because it will be based on when you finish your instruction, when you finish your data verification, when that final payment gets deposited into your account. So work with your Office of Grants Management grant manager to determine when those are going to be due, because for each of you, that will be a little bit different based on each of those factors. So next, I just want to talk about some items of note. So just some common questions that I've gotten that I want you all to be aware of. So the first one is your overall compliance rating does not impact the ability for reimbursement to be released. However, it does correlate to the amount of reimbursement. So what this means is this question often comes to me as, well, we're in poor progress, which means that we haven't got, they won't release funding to us. Release of funding is completely based on those outcome metrics. So it's not because you're in poor progress. So it's not a situation of if you have outstanding funds that can be paid out and you happen to get a poor progress rating, it doesn't mean the state says, well, they have poor progress, we can't release any funds to them. What they're looking at is purely that per participant allotment. And then if you have expenses that will correlate to that allotment. So it's important to remember that, because we've had a lot of organizations that have done really well and they have earned, let's say $250,000. And for whatever reason, there was a data entry issue, or, just verification documents are slower than expected, they end up dropping in their overall progress rating and think that that drop is going to lock them out from getting that reimbursement. It will not. If you have reimbursement funds available and the Office of Grants Management has approved your expenses, regardless of what your compliance rating is, that funding will be released to you. Number two, the payment worksheet outlines what has been approved for reimbursement. It does not track what has been reimbursed to your organization. So again, this is just getting at, this will only tell you what our team has approved for reimbursement. What has been reimbursed to your organization is also dependent on what expenses you have submitted. So we're just letting the Office of Grants Management know this is how much you have earned. They are the ones who determine what expenses have been approved, and then that final payout amount that will end up going to the comptroller and that we will sign off on to make sure that that funding gets out to you. Number three is marking an individual as complete or complete and in transition does not guarantee that they will be counted in IWRS as a completion or as transition. So simply updating the status of an individual is not enough to get them to count as complete or transition in this review. You have to have all of the required data and verification documents to count as a verified completion, as a verified transition. So again, simply marking someone as complete, but they have no attendance, no post assessments, no certifications uploaded. That individual is not considered complete in the eyes of the Office of Illinois Works. So all of that corresponding data needs to be entered for that individual to count towards your outcome metrics. And then number four, when in doubt about any of this, ask your Illinois Works grant manager. They will be more than happy to walk you through this process, walk you through any questions. So please don't feel like you have to try to figure this out on your own. Please ask questions. It's easier to solve on the front end than trying to kind of backdate data or information. And then finally, this is just the process that we go through. So this is what I kind of just walked you through. So you're going to enter your data. Your grant manager pulls the data from IWRS. They complete those monthly compliance reports, including the payment worksheet and the monthly progress report, and that gets sent to you. Then all of those reimbursement maximums get sent over to the Office of Grants Management, where they will review your supporting documentation, your expenses that have come in. They will determine what allowable expenses have been approved and compare that to your reimbursement maximum. And then once the Office of Grants Management has said, hey, you know what, this is how many expenses they have, this is their reimbursement maximum, this is how much we think that we can pay this organization, they come back to the Office of Illinois Works, we approve it, and then the Office of Grants Management sends that voucher over to the comptroller's office, who then is responsible for actually cutting that check and getting it out to the organization. So this is the process kind of in a nutshell. If there are any questions whatsoever, please do not hesitate to reach out to your Illinois Works grant manager. If you are looking to get more information about reimbursement maximums, if you have questions about what supporting documentation is needed for your expenses, that is going to be something that's going to go to your Office of Grants Management grant manager. So again, anything related to that monthly progress report, that payment worksheet, your reimbursement amount, your reimbursement maximum amount, that is Office of Illinois Works. Anything related to your periodic financial report, your periodic programmatic report, expense documentation, anything like that is going to go to your Office of Grants Management grant manager. So again, any questions about kind of that divide, who you need to ask about what, please get in touch with your Office of Illinois Works grant manager. They can direct you to whoever that right question should be directed to. And thank you so much for for watching this webinar today.